Do you have a VRM model and are wondering which program to use? Well, look no further, as today we're going to go over everything you need to get started using VSeeFace, which is in my opinion the best free 3D app. To begin, you'll simply need to import your avatar by clicking on the Add Avatar button and then navigating to wherever you store your model files. Then, in the top right hand corner of the program, you will need to select your webcam settings. In camera settings, you can see all the different resolutions and encodings available to your webcam. Higher frame rate is generally better than higher resolution for tracking, so don't worry if your webcam can't do 1080p. As for the codec, I personally haven't noticed a large difference in quality or performance, but you may want to test which works best for your own setup. Select your camera frame rate. As mentioned before, higher is generally better. Then pick your tracking quality, which increases or reduces the amount of resources your computer requires to run VSeeFace. The names are very fitting descriptions for how things will look. Toaster quality, of course, being my favorite. Finally, select your microphone. You can use it with that one, but I highly recommend turning it on to use the lip sync function I'll go over later in the video. Once everything looks good, go ahead and click start, give it a few seconds, and then your model will be loaded. Your webcam will take a few more seconds after that, and if everything worked correctly, your model should now be moving. Now let's dive into what makes VSeeFace so special. It's the settings. There are so many settings. We're not going to do a deep dive into all of them. Instead, we'll be focusing on the basics to get you going. We'll begin with general settings, and because there are so many, we're going to give a one-line description for basically every setting. Keep in mind that this is for version 1.13.36H of VSeeFace, and things might change in the future. Auto blink. When turned on, it will make your model blink occasionally. While looking down, controls how sensitive your blinks are when you're looking down and your webcam can't detect your face very well. Link eye blinks. It links your eye blinks together. This can't be turned on while Smart Wink is active. Smart Wink reopens the other eye when a blink is detected. This is a little unnecessary if you're using the highest tracking quality because it comes with wink support. Fake gaze makes your eyes either follow your head or look directly at the camera. The audio lip sync hotkey turns audio lip sync on and off. Always use full lip sync animation makes it so that anytime your mouth transitions from making a vowel to a consonant or anything else, it uses the full animation. Normalized mouth blend shapes. This forcibly normalizes your blend shape values if above 1. This really only matters if you're doing custom animations. Hybrid lip sync / mouth tracking uses a combination of webcam tracking and audio lip sync to determine how your model mouth moves. I highly recommend keeping this on at all times. Reset pose on tracking loss. If your model loses tracking, it goes back to a neutral pose. Prevent vertical head movement. Stops your head bobbing from moving the vertical position of your avatar. Enables spring bone VRM. This lets your hair fly in the wind and a whole bunch of other little things. Default camera position. Lets you set up hotkeys for custom camera shots. Face tracking. Tracks your face. Expression detection. You can choose to have none, simple, or experimental, but I will cover this a lot more in just a little bit. Graphic settings control how nice everything looks. I'd recommend putting in a frame rate cap so you don't use more resources than you have to. Device settings are where you select your webcam and microphone. Virtual camera lets you project your model to other programs. OSC and VMC protocol allows VSeeFace to either receive or send tracking data to other VTubing apps, which lets you do things like use external motion capture devices for movement by using VSeeFace for facial detection and many other combinations. Advanced settings can have odd side effects or cause performance issues, so we won't be using any of these today. Most of the sliders just modify settings I just went over, so I'm only going to mention a few that I think are important. Focal length is how close your camera is to your model. Lip sync smoothing helps fine-tune your talking to look a little bit more realistic. And finally, the stiffness sliders determine just how much your model will move or rotate at the various points mentioned. I highly encourage everyone to play with all of these settings to make your model move the way you want, and in my experience, if there's something wrong with how it's moving, it's because a setting got mistuned along the way. Expression settings are next. Every expression has a list of settings you can use to alter them. Base or additive. Base means it overrides the current expression, while additive means it picks a halfway point between the active expression and the hotkeyed expression. This can lead to some rather amusing results. Enable eye blinking, mouth, and eyebrow tracking lets you still blink, talk, or wiggle your eyes while the expression is active. Hold or toggle is kind of self-explanatory. And transition times are better thought of as expression smoothing. If you have no transition time, it looks very choppy, but if you have too much, it looks pretty slow. Defaults are usually just fine for most people. Now we're going to segue back into the expression detection from the general settings. If you have none selected, expressions can only be played when using hotkeys. If you have selected simple, the facial tracking will do its best to change the expressions whenever it detects them, but it's only limited to fun, angry, and surprised. The final option is expression detection, which requires quite a bit of setup. When you turn it on, you will see 6 expressions appear at the bottom of your screen, which you will use to train VSeeFace. When you click on one, it will begin recording what your face should look like. For example, if you were to train your fun face, you would make that face, hit the button, and then begin moving your head around to every angle the webcam can detect. This is time consuming and pretty tedious, but you can really notice the results once you've finished. I'll add a side note from the developer here that when you are training your neutral face, it's not just the neutral face you should make, it's any face you don't want to be detected as an expression. The example given is making a slight smile, so it doesn't always jump to your fun face if you grin a little bit. When you've finished with all the faces, you can hit calibrate and the new tracking information you've given the program will take effect. I always like to back up my calibration by hitting save calibration and putting it in a folder I won't forget about. If for whatever reason you accidentally overwrite your calibration, but you have it backed up, you can always load it from that file. Once you've got all the expressions set up, it's time to move on to lighting. Now, as a quick side note, you can add custom animations through Unity, but that is going to require a different tutorial, and I will not be showing that here. There are 2 forms of lighting that come with VSeeFace: sun and ambient. You can adjust the color and intensity with the sliders, and you can move the light source around by pushing Ctrl plus left click. When you find a lighting setup that you like, you can use safe position to make VSeeFace remember where you put it, and if you accidentally overwrite it in the future, you can push reset position to move it back. You can also turn the shadows on and off to get some cool effects. Next up is the effects settings, and there's quite a few to go over. Bloom can give you that anime type feel by softly illuminating your model with whatever colors you want. Ambient Occlusion adds some more realistic looking shadows to your model. However, some models may have shadows around their eyes, which will require some work in Unity to fix. I'll leave a link to the video I used to fix this problem down in the description. Lens Distortion lets you change the camera settings to get some very weird and wacky looks. Chromatic Aberration gives you sort of a mirage looking outline, and it's much more exaggerated on models with a lot of colors. Color lets you change the overall colors of the scene, allowing you to saturate, brighten, darken, or even tint your model a certain color. This is pretty useful if you are trying to match the look of a scene or a setting. Grain puts some distortion over your screen that kind of gives it that old-timey feel. Finally, halftone makes you look like some sort of comic book or manga character, with the option to pick from any color you want so you can fit any scene. The final tab of settings is used for the Leap Motion hand tracking device. This is a separate piece of equipment that you'd have to buy if you want to do hand tracking with VSeeFace. All the Leap Motion settings refer to where it's located, how it's rotated, and how quickly you want it to pick up movement. Personally, I've had a lot of fun with this device, but it can be quite expensive, so I don't recommend picking one up unless you really want hand tracking. Now that we've finished all the setting tabs, let's move on to the rest of the buttons on the home screen. Avatar selection lets you add new avatars and select any previously loaded avatars. Help opens up a screen that shows many useful tips, including hotkeys, expression configuration, and both camera and light movement. It also includes a tutorial on how to set up VSeeFace for streaming with OBS and Streamlabs. Clear calibration removes the currently loaded calibration of your model, while load calibration lets you upload a previously saved version. Save calibration and save calibration as are pretty self-explanatory. Reset position, whose default hotkey is R, returns the model to a forward-facing neutral position. This is very useful if your model starts to get a little off-center. Mirror motion makes the model move in the same direction as you. I always leave this on because it makes things easier to act out. Drift back to normal slowly moves your model back to the neutral position when you turn it on. Drift speed controls how quickly this happens. Drag motion turns the hand tracking on or off. Smoothing tries to keep all your movement cohesive, and movement range determines how far your model will move with your head. Now that we've gone over all the settings, let's talk hardware. What CPU or GPU do you need to run this? I went through and tested all the different tracking qualities to find out just how many resources they used. Please note that this is my best approximation of what you should have in order to both stream and or record VSeeFace. I recommend a 3 GHz quad core as the bare minimum, with a GTX 1070 graphics card. This is the setup I used up until last December, and it got me through most things just fine, but I did notice some slowdown and stuttering if I tried to play anything on stream that was even slightly intense, like Phasmophobia. If you're doing more art type streams or non-GPU intensive programs, you could probably get away with a much less powerful graphics card. Big shout out to Emiliana and Virtual Deet for making this awesome program and keeping it free for everyone to enjoy. If there's other software you'd like me to demo, or just have questions that I didn't answer, leave a comment down below and remember to like the video if it helped you out. Also join our Discord, where I'm free to chat basically anytime. I'll see you next video.